Here is Block N, a heart, some flowers, from me, Daphne, to you, a fellow knitter. Here are the 2 pages for the textured sampler blanket, Block N. There are 4 patterns: Sweetheart, Moss with Twisty Bands, Ladder Stitch and Flower Garden. Sweetheart, which is a stitch that is a little more involved, is worked at the same time as the super easy Moss with Twisty Bands. Flower Garden, which is also a little bit involved with what you have to do, is worked at the same time as the super easy Ladder Stitch. When casting on with 2 colours, you need to loop the second colour around the working end of the first colour. Not this leftover tail, but around the working thread. This will ensure a nice, neat cast on edge to your work. And just ease this one back. And there you have a nice neat edge to start. I'm just working 1 foundation row, a knit row, before the patterns start. When you get to the join, where you join in the new colour, of course you have to loop one over the other, so you don't get a hole in your work. I've just finished row 6. And that is the end of the pure reverse stocking stitch here. In this next row, row 7, we're going to begin the heart. We'll be continuing the twisty bands. I've purled into where we're going to do the first little bit of creating of the heart. Now it's going to be in this stitch, so I'm going to loosen it up a bit. A slow, careful version of this increase is available if you look it up our website, our tutorials for the free knitting stitch tutorials. It's a bit of a fiddly increase, but it works well. And then back to purl to the end of the row. So that's row 7 finished. Row 7 finishes the twisty bands part of here. So in row 8 we'll start the moss stitch here. Row 8 also has another increase for the sweetheart. Let's increase. And there we are, off again with the surrounding reverse stocking stitch. Right up to the change of colour, and then we'll start on the moss stitch. This is a wrong side row, and it's just straight out traditional moss stitch. Knit 1, purl 1, knit 1 to the end of the row. This is row 9. I've done my area of moss stitch. I've purled in from the edge to where we're up to the heart. Now this time there's no increases, we're just setting it up. There's 2 knit stitches which begin the nice bit to go up and around. 1 purl stitch for the filling in the middle, and then 2 knit stitches. That makes the left hand edge of the heart. Then purl to the end of the row. This is row 10. I've just knitted in from the edge to where the heart is. It's a wrong side row, and the wrong side rows you just follow what you set up in the previous row. So there's 2 purl stitches there. Remember they were knit stitches on the other side, but this side they're purl stitches. Then there's a knit stitch, so we knit it. And then 2 more purl stitches. That's the end of the heart. And we knit for the reverse stocking stitch to the end of this colour, where again we'll start on the moss stitch. Remembering, of course, with the changeover to loop the yarn around. Off we go with moss. We're now going to be using the cable needle for this next section of the heart. In row 11 we have 2 cables, one to the right, one to the left, and this is repeated in rows 13, 15 and 17. That's also shown in the diagram from row 11 up here and up there. I'm now up to row 13. That's the end of the moss stitch, 5 rows of moss stitch, and I'm going to change back to the twisty bands in row 13. Also, when I get over to the heart, I'll show you those cable stitches that I talked about, the cables that began in row 11. I'll show you in row 13. It's a little bit too easier to show you in row 13 because you can see how the heart is developing. I've just decided that it would be rather helpful if I put into the pattern when we have to change with the moss and the twisty bands. So what I've done is put a little light dotted line for the end of the twisty bands and a slightly heavier, bolder dotted line for the end of the moss stitch. And there we are, light line, a heavier line, a light line. So what I need to do now is transfer all these ones I've done. This is row 13. I've changed to the twisty bands, just like the dotted line told me. I've now purled in to the edge of the heart, and this is the 2 over 1 to the right cable that you'll need for the next few rows to develop the heart. Now with the double moss stitch here in the middle that fills the heart, when you're on the wrong side row, I said you keep copying what you already had, what you had put there in the previous row. This is where you put it here. Now, in this one, this is where you change the moss. So that was a purl, so now that's going to be knit. That was knit, so that's going to be purl, and then a knit, and then the one that comes in from the outside, it will be a purl. Finish the heart, purl to the edge of the row to keep working on your reverse stocking stitch. You can see the heart developing that way and that way, and these increases go on also for rows 15 and 17. We're now up to row 19 and we go to a different kind of cable, a 2 over 2 to the right and a 2 over 2 to the left. Also, that was the last row for the twisty bands, signalled there by the neat little dotted line. So when we come back, it'll be moss stitch again. Here we are on row 19, and the little diagram shows how the heart flares out at this stage. So 2 over 2 to the right, 2 over 2 to the left. Let's do it. Purled in from the edge, and here we are up to the 2 that are going to go behind there and end up in the middle of the heart. So 2 over 2, put them to the back, knit our 2 for the outline of the heart, and then knit 1, purl 1 from the cable needle, continue in the middle with our double moss stitch, 2 to the front, purl 2 from the back there, not purl 2, purl 1, knit 1, now knit 2 from the cable needle, and then purl to the edge of your work. Row 21, no cabling in this row. Purl the reverse stocking stitch, knit the 2 stitches for the cables and work the moss stitch. Row 22, knit the knits and purl the purls. In row 23, we increase on a right side row, and in row 24, we're increasing on a wrong side row. They're a different increase. We actually did them down here to start. We're now up to row 25. And in row 25, we're going to begin to make the rounded tops for the heart. So we're going to use the cable needle and bring 2 stitches over 1 to the left, then 2 stitches over 1 to the right, a purl stitch, then 2 over 1 to the left, then 2 over 1 to the right. Now these cables are the ones you did right at the beginning when you were coming up here. And of course row 25 is the first row of the twisty bands. I've just finished row 25 and you can see how they're beginning to come in. In between the 2 top parts of the heart, there are now 3 purl stitches that are joining the background for the reverse stocking stitch. In row 27 we did 2 new cables. This one 2 over 2 going left, all knit stitches. This one 2 over 2 going right, all knit stitches. We also did 2 cables as we've done before, 2 over 1 to the right, 2 over 1 to the left, and they were the same as these ones that you used when starting. We now complete the tops of the heart, and it says decrease 4, and this is done by slipping stitches from the right hand needle to the left hand needle backwards and forwards until you've decreased 4 and you only end up with 1. We're going to reduce those 5 stitches down to 1. There's 2 knit 1, 2 knit 1s and 1 purl 1. The purl 1 is the centre one. And purl to the edge. The next row is a knit row, followed by more reverse stocking stitch rows, just to give it a little bit of space at the top. And there's Sweetheart and Moss with Twisty Bands finished. Quite a neat changeover of colours, because we started and ended every row with the knit 1. I think it's time for a cup of coffee. And here we are, all set up ready to begin the flower garden. I've got my reverse stocking stitch there. The ladder stitch has already begun. 3 stitches on each side in stocking stitch that will go all the way up, and the ladder stitch in between them. Here's the first stem for the first flower. I've purled in from the edge. Now it's just a twisted stitch, and then we'll purl along here till we get to another stem. And let's start another stem with a twisted stitch, which is just knit into the back of the loop, and then purl to the edge of your colour. Then onto the ladder stitch, which on the right side is always just knit. How easy is that? Right to the end of the row. Now back to the flower garden, and the flower garden is set in reverse stocking stitch, so that's exactly what we do. till we come to the twisted stitch. And here's the twisted stitch. We're going to purl into the back of it. It's not like we did down below with the twisty bands, because we only did the twisted stitch on the right side. This twisted stitch is on both sides to make nice stems that stand up high from the background. There's another one, you can see it there, a purl twist, and then I knit to the end of the row. We keep developing the stems of the flowers for 6 rows. So this is the 3rd row. I'm keeping track of the rows the same way as I did for the previous part of the knitting we did. I've just finished row 3. That is 6 rows to make those stems. We're now up to row 7. We'll put some leaves in row 7. Let's make a leaf. Make it the right length. There's the leaf. Knit 1, pass the leaf stitch over. Knit some background. Twist the stem. Let's make a second leaf. And there we have 2 leaves and a stem in the centre. In row 9 we begin making the flowers with knit 1, yarn over 3 times, knit 1, all into the same stitch, making 7 stitches from 1. Let's begin the flower. Right on top of the stem, knit 1, yarn over, and we do that 3 times. So that's once, knit 1, yarn over, that's twice, knit 1, yarn over, that's 3 times, knit 1. And that's the flower begun. On the return row, the wrong side row, when we get to that cluster of 7 that we made, we just purl all 7. 1, 2, 6, 7. Then continue on with the knit for the reverse stocking stitch. Let's continue with the flower. This is row 11. So we're going to knit 2 together through the back of the loop, then knit 3 together at the front, a little bit hard when you're getting 3 together. Let's try again. 1, 2, 3, and then knit the other 2 together through the back of the loop. Then we purl merrily along till we get to the next flower. Knit 2 together through the back of the loop and then purl to the end of the row. And in row 12 we finish off the flower. So I've knitted in from the edge. We're just going to purl those 3 together. That's all that's left of the 7 that we made. And then knit along to the next flower, purl the 3 stitches together, and they're done. As soon as we've finished one set of flowers, in the next row we start the stems for the next ones. They're offset from them. The first flowers only had 2 in their row. The second set have 3. In row 13 we began the new stems. This time there are 3 of them. There, there and there. And in row 14 coming back we continued to build those stems for the new flowers. I'm not going to show you the next part of the knitting because we just keep doing more of the same. But instead of having 2 flowers in the row, there'll be 3 flowers. And remember, when you get to here, when you're about to come back to purl 3 together to finish off the flowers, before you complete that row, you turn and do the short row for the ladder stitch, so everything stays nice and square. And here is the finished block. What a cheerful one. Hearts and flowers. I hope you enjoyed the mixture of some moss, a ladder, a heart and some flowers. Bye-bye.
Hi, I'm Ferg, Daphne's husband. Here are the steps to get your free download of Daphne's Textured Sampler ebook. The first step is send an email to knitwithdaphne@gmail.com and include the subject free download. There is no need for any content in the email, and then send the email. You will receive an automatic response to your email that includes the link to access Google Cloud. When you click the link, the Knit with Daphne folder with all the downloadable patterns will open. Double-click the textured sampler blanket to open and download the ebook. Enjoy knitting the textured sampler blanket.